Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Thursday. It is June 17th. This will be our chart lesson for today, and this is going to wrap up our week. No chart lessons on Fridays, um, so it'll be Monday before we're back again. Crazy day today, and in the big picture, this is a range. I mean, you can see the lows down here, and then the highs up here. We never got outside of either one of them, at least not for very long. It's not your typical range day where you're usually inside your overnight highs and lows, but I would still characterize this as a range day. I think you were better off to play the trends. Early on, we had this two-tiered trend working up. We had a big overshoot, a break, still tried to move to a new high, and we just kind of worked sideways till this big sell-off came right here, and there was really no real indication this was going to do this. This was kind of a surprise here. Normally the price action will give you a little heads up that something's coming. Didn't here. This thing just turned down, and it was two strong legs straight down. And then, of course, we took it all back within a few minutes, and we just chopped around basically the rest of the day. A little bit of a downtrend here on a correction after a break of this trend. This blue one here. Of course, we got an overshoot, which led to a couple of legs correction, and then we moved up again. So that was kind of the big picture view of it. And I think you were better off to trade this blue one early on and maybe stick to the trend line or the short-term trends within. And then all you could do is trade these tighter, real tight micro trends. I call that a micro trend, but that's not really a micro trend. And that trend runs for, I mean, that's a 32-point trend before we ever even really get a correction at all. And then the one coming down is probably very similar. Yep, 33 points, 59 bars straight down. It's a real tight channel. You got a break here and then a huge move to a new low. Just a crazy kind of day. And, you know, is the volatility going to come back? Maybe. We're getting at these, you know, everywhere you read, everything's negative, but the market has been continuing to go up. So, you know, where we're going to go from here, let's take a quick look at the daily. Okay, here's a look at that daily. And remember, here's the channel we've been in, or the range we've been in for a while, where we had that failed breakout the lower side. Now we've had a failed breakout the top. Notice where we bounced and where we closed here. We traded back inside, but before it was over, we closed outside and tried to go higher. So we could get a triple test here, and if it turns up, I would expect we're going to try to work higher, but it takes a little longer for these things to play out on a daily chart than it does an intraday 2,000 tick chart. So just remember that and keep that in mind. But if we break higher from here tomorrow, then we've definitely got a nice triple test here. That's not a great signal bar right there. It may close a little bit different before the day's over, but we'll see. But anyway, you can clearly see we came over here and tested this breakout area again, the resistance, and it's still, so far, even though we breached it, it's still closed. Prices are closed well above it. So this is still acting as support. So we'll see if we go higher from here. We'll just have to kind of wait and play it out. But there's a quick look at it anyway. And so back to the 2,000 tick chart. Let's back out here. You see that big picture again. And you can see where we traded way down into here a couple of times, and we bounced both times down here. We actually made a little higher low here. We're just really finding some strong resistance right here around this 42.20 to 42.25 area, something like that. So let's back out here and we'll go through the trades, or zoom in, I guess I should say. I always feel like I'm backing out, but I guess we're zooming in. So I know you guys will be quick to point it out if I say I'm backing out, but we're zooming in. So, but early on we were you can see we traded down and then we traded up and went into this little range right here. And we'd had a failed breakout and we traded right back in. And this was at right at 7 o'clock when we start coming, after we came back in and went back and tested that, and it still acted as resistance and turned down. I like this trade. You could look at this as a lower high, but it's really moved a long way to consider that a lower high. But you could also count this as a failed second entry long. It really only looks like one leg down, so we're likely to get another leg down here. So I like that trade. I marked it green because it's not, I don't think it's a true reversal pattern, which is what you'd like to see, but it's still a good setup with it coming back and testing the resistance of the overhead range resistance. And you got a very nice signal bar, and it's a quick, easy move. So, of course, you don't know that ahead of time, but I like that trade. So, and of course, we bounce here, and you get a first entry, and then you push on through the EMA and you pull back. That's what a good reversal looks like. So I like going long right there. I know somebody's going to ask me, well, what about the resistance? Yeah, you want to pay attention to it, but we just pushed right through there. This is a reversal trap. We've got one leg up. Most likely we're going to go higher here. I like that trade. And you see it did find a little resistance, but it pushes on through. And the fact that it's a trap will probably help it to get on through. And like I said, we just came through there and kind of cleaned things out really about not even an hour prior. Maybe an hour, 45 minutes to an hour prior. And if you catch this trade, that's the only one you probably need today. But there's not a lot of trades today, and some trader sent me an email this morning just saying he can't find many trades. Well, there's not a lot of them in here. It's hard to trade when you run like this, then run straight down, and then run straight up, and then run straight down, and things are not turning at clearly identifiable points. It's hard to trade that stuff. So, if you didn't find a lot of trades, it's probably because there weren't many. But if you catch this one trade, and it was pretty obvious, and you see prices run strongly, then of course we turn down. There's a lower high here, but with this still being inside this trend, this two-tiered yellow channel, and that being right into the trend line, we know it's overdue time for us to come back, but sometimes it just keeps going for a while. So I don't think you can afford to take that trade right there. It's not a true trap. So, I'm sure that probably trapped out a lot of longs right there coming down. And then you get a two-legged correction here that's mostly sideways, but hopefully you can see there's a leg up, pull back, and another leg up. And there's several swings in each leg. But it looks really sideways, and it is, but there's still a two-legged correction. So then look for a measured move when we start lower here again. And unfortunately, you could probably argue for that to be green too. I didn't mark it because generally you want to wait on a lower high when it breaks out like that, but I'll go ahead and mark it. But of course, we're kind of chopping sideways, and notice we make that high. We come back and we test it once, twice. So that's a double top on a lower high because it's lower than that high. And there's also a second entry short, which doesn't mean a whole lot when you're going sideways like that. But I like that setup. You would expect prices to come back and test the lows. Of course they don't, but you still would have got your scalp out of it. And then it runs two legs up, and again, you might take that trade. I really like to wait on the lower high, and you just don't get one here that runs straight down. And of course, you do have a little channel working lower here. Got that off a little bit. And it runs down, you get your break and a couple legs to a new low, and then you reverse. Now, this one's a little particular here. Notice that new low, and you get a first entry, then you push through the EMA and you pull back. Normally, you'd want this to come all the way back to the EMA. However, you've got that support right there of the range, and it came back and tested it once, twice, and couldn't get through. So, and it makes a lower high there, so you could look at that. It looks a lot like a failed second entry short. And you could also say, hey, it's a good signal bar off of the lows. Yeah, it's an inside bar, but it does have matching lows. So there's a couple of reasons to like that one. There's another higher low here, but you're too far away from the EMA and right in the middle of the range. So, but I marked this one green. It's a little aggressive, but if you understand what I just explained about the looking like a failed second entry short and it testing the range support twice when it got back inside it, odds are we're going back to the high of this thing. And we could go higher because these breakouts sometimes, that's why I like these breakouts, because they turn out to be important highs or lows. I mean, that's a good move down through there if you caught it. And certainly if you caught this breakout down here, it's a good move up. There's a higher low right here, but I don't like it because it's sideways and right into the EMA and right into the trend line. You might have thought about entering here, but I think the signal bar is too big, and I think you need to wait on that higher low, and you just don't get that. But you might take that trade, and you don't get another chance to enter this one. It runs up. Of course, you get your close outside, move to a new high, and then notice you try to go higher once, twice. So you get a trap here, and it breaks higher and turns down. So when you could go short one tick below that. I don't think I'd wait till here and go short one tick below that. I think you want to enter up here because you could bounce off that EMA again. And so you need that extra room to get out. But and you got to be careful with engulfing bars. But when it breaks higher like that on a trap and turns down, you can see it wasn't long. This thing was moving down pretty quickly. And if you just caught that one move, all these longs realize now something's changed. We got to get out. And all your last minute strugglers here that were trying to get long have to get out. You do make a new swing high there and you get a first entry, but your second entry doesn't come till down here. I mean, you could technically call, since you made that 2-bar matching high, you could call that a correction, but you'd be really pushing it because that is a new swing high. It's higher than that one. So first entry, and then it corrects and breaks higher. Second entry. So you might look at that as a second entry, a failure on a second entry. And of course, you make another leg down. I didn't put the measured leg on here. You can see we made a perfect measured leg, kind of chopped sideways, dropped lower a little bit, and then next thing you know, we got the reversal on this side. Notice you got your close outside and new low, and you run up, and when it pushes right through the EMA, it pulls back. You get a first entry, and it pulls back and gets a second entry, and it doesn't fail until it breaks above this bar right here. And so I like going long there. And you may not have got in this trade unless you used a limit order. I doubt you could have got your stop order in time. But you could have got filled there on a limit order most likely. And it runs on up, goes sideways, and this is the one I really wanted to point out. This one's kind of interesting. This one doesn't give you any kind of warning this is coming really. You still got this channel working up. So far it looks valid. You don't really get a trap here of any kind. You don't get a failed break out of this little congestion. Let's just change the color on that one since the so it just suddenly turns around and goes out the other side and just goes down hard. Actually, that's not the, yeah, that's it, where we got the big sell-off. And that one threw me off a little bit, I'll be honest with you, because there's no clue that that's coming. Usually you get some kind of clue. It fails on a breakout, or you get a failed second entry or something. But you just get a first entry long, it kind of runs up, and then next thing you know, because that's clearly a range, a little tight congestion area. And then the next thing you know, it's rocketing down. And it doesn't really give you a good opportunity to enter until here. And the reason I like this one, and you had to kind of be paying attention here, because notice there's a new low and you get the first entry and it makes a higher low. So there's a second entry short right there. But it doesn't give you much room to these lows. It would have worked if you took it. I wouldn't really have that big a problem with it. I would mark that. Your stop still has to go above this bar, your safety stop. I'll give it a green, but that's a second entry short, and that technically is a new high because notice we moved up and made that high, and then we broke lower first. So there's your first entry, and then it turns back up and makes another new high. So technically that is a new swing high. You have to be pretty good at reading the chart to see that. It's not something that just sticks out. It's not something you always want to trade. But notice what happens. You come down, you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry, and it fails. And if you had enough room to get out before this low here, then you might want to take that trade because that's the only opportunity you really good opportunity to get in this trade. And again, you don't know that it's going to move down like that because now all you're expecting is a new low. But once it starts heading down, you want to look for that measured move. And you can see we went just a tad further, but you can see where all the support was right at the measured move. And so you had two legs of correction, and it took a little while before it reverses and it goes the other way. So you may have taken those two. I don't see anything else here that I really like. I'm going short or long. You don't want to be trying to go long down here, and you definitely don't want to be going short. So not when that resistance or that support set up right there. This one was really tempting because if you look here, there's really a little range running across. Oops, wrong one. You can see that range. We had the failed break lower, but you don't want to be buying. And then we came up and you've got a double test right here. So you might have taken that trade. I didn't mark it. It's another one you could argue to be green. But you would have got your scalp and then it reverses. And you get a second entry short here that fails, but it's too far away from the EMA. But then all of a sudden we work back. You make that low and you try to go lower again. And this breaks lower first and fails and goes up, leaves that nice bullish bar. It does confirm that trend line. It is a nice bullish bar, and you got a little bit of that trap right there. It's a little double bottom, so you might take that trade. It looks a little congestive, so there's a few little things, but I really like that trade because this is obviously one leg up, and anytime you get a big move, let me get this on here. You may get that measured leg right there. Anytime you get a big move down like this, it's just real sudden and real quick. It's usually not long before it takes it back or resets, unless it's going to be a trend day. And this was not a trend day, so no surprise that we went back higher and took all that back here. So this one's real close to being green, though. Just make sure you understand that. The high or low here, but you're going long right at the high, way away from the EMA, not above the trend line as well there too, so not even back to the trend line. We run up here. It looks like you get an overshoot and you're working back. This is very similar to this one. It's almost a repeat pattern. The only difference is the little sideways stuff is working upwards here, where here it was kind of working down. So again, it breaks lower and turns up. You could go long on a buy stop one tick above this bar, but that's right into the high. So I'd let that break higher and then drop me a limit order in it. I don't think I would want to go long up here. So you got to pretty much trade this on the engulfing bar or let it break higher and then drop a limit order right back there, one tick above that bar. It would have worked no matter how you traded it, but you know, it's just a little risky. I mean, that bar has 17 ticks, so. But runs on up, finally gets a break. And again, this is two legs down here, even though it doesn't really look like it. There's two legs down. It's a lot of sideways stuff in here. I don't think you want to trade any of this in here, but then we break lower. And notice you got a new high and then you get a first entry, second entry, and it fails. A nice bearish bar, and you really got a triple top across there. It's like a double test. If we break lower, you'll probably get a scalp. You got plenty of room back down to these lows, and of course you run down there, make a new low, and then it bounces. So that was the last possibility today. It was right before 2 o'clock, and I don't see anything. There's nothing. We're getting too late before you get over into here. So that's kind of how I saw it today. Like I said, a little bit of a strange day because you had all these big moves. Look at that move, and then it's like the buying. It's like some buying comes in, and then somebody else says, "Well, that's a good price to sell," and a lot of huge selling comes in. And then it gets back down here near the original price, and the people, oh, we still like that price, and they buy it. So it's like they're duking it out. Some big sellers and some big buyers are duking it out or something. Not sure. There's no way to know exactly what's going on, but it's an interesting price action. It's very volatile sideways action, really. So there's no real direction here. So anyway, I'm not going to beat around the bush. We're over 20 minutes here, so I'm going to wrap this one up. Again, no chart lessons on Friday, so we won't be back till Monday. But I'm done for today. Hope you had a good week. Hope you have a good weekend. We'll see you Monday. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next.